Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us as we discuss matters affecting Africa. On the show tonight, we host Dr. Segenet Kelemu. She is the Director General of ICIPE. We get your views on the issues as well. And as always, we have Africa's Top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gishuru. Dr. Segenet Kelemu is the Director General of ICIPE, otherwise known as the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology. She's an Ethiopian national and a molecular plant pathologist and has vast experience on the challenges and successes associated with African agriculture firsthand from the field to the lab. Let's take a look at her profile.
From Cornell University in the United States, Dr. Segenet Kelemu joined the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, CIAT, as a senior scientist in 1992. She was later appointed leader of the Crop and Agrosystem Health Management at CIAT until her departure in August 2007 to become director of BECA. CIAT recognized her numerous contributions to the center and its mission with the Outstanding Senior Scientist Award. In 2007, she became the director of the Biosciences Eastern and Central Africa BECA Hub at the International Livestock Research Institute, Nairobi, Kenya. Under her leadership, the BECA initiative has transformed from a contentious idea into a driving force that is changing the face of African biosciences. She has assembled and inspired a scientific and technical team bound by a common passion for using science to enhance Africa's biosciences development. Prior to becoming the Director General of ICIPE, she was the Vice President for Programs at the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, for about a year. She's one of the first laureates of the 2014 L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Awards. Over 15 years ago, L'Oréal and UNESCO founded the For Women in Science program to promote and highlight the critical importance of ensuring greater participation of women in science. Each year, the program recognizes the achievements of exceptional female scientists across the globe and awards them with fellowships to help further their research. She is also one of the 2013 elected Fellows of the African Academy of Sciences. She has also received other awards, including the prestigious Friendship Award granted by the People's Republic of China. The award is granted to foreign experts who have made outstanding contributions to China's economic and social development. The Academy of Sciences for the Developing World, TWAS, is awarding the 2011 TWAS Prize for Agricultural Sciences. She is the first African to win the prize for agricultural sciences since its inception. TWAS prizes are awarded to individual scientists in developing countries in recognition of an outstanding contribution to knowledge in 8 fields of science. Segenet has served in a number of governing boards, technical advisory panels and steering committees of key organizations and major science and technology initiatives. Segenet is also an innate teacher and has supervised and mentored a number of Bachelor of Science, Master in Science and PhD students.
And now, let's get to Dr. Segenet Kelemu's insights into Africa. Such a pleasure, Segenet, to have you on the Africa Leadership Dialogues, especially on a week when you've been awarded this incredible prize. Tell us a little bit about how you feel right now.
Thank you. I feel wonderful. I think it's always a good thing to be recognized, and it's a great feeling. It's a great honor, yes. Yeah.
You grew up in Ethiopia. Yes. As a young girl in Ethiopia, did you ever imagine you would accomplish this much?
No, it is hard to imagine something that you don't know it even exists. So when you grow up in a village the way I did, so it's difficult even to dream something you don't know that it exists. However, that I had always wanted to do something different from what society in general set up things for girls. Basically, girls in my village were destined to be married at early age and be a good wife and a good mother. So I always knew that that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah.
A bit of a rebel.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So let's talk a bit about you as a young girl and going into the sciences, achieving what you have, because this seems to be a real challenge in Africa, to get enough people into the sciences, and especially girls.
Yes, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on how to change that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I think we really need to change the way science is taught in school, the way science is perceived, by linking it to real life. So science basically makes a difference in people's lives. And only a few decades ago, people died of simple infections. So the discovery of antibiotics through science really have changed, has changed our lives. And so these types of examples and linking science and the breakthroughs made in science and enabling life, creating life-changing, experience, that all those things have to be taught in school. And also to teach also science in such a way that this is not really, science is not just for a few intelligent people or some crazy people. Or
it's not intimidating.
It's not intimidating, exactly. So that it's open to all, regardless of which background they come from, which gender they are.
So that's a great way to reach the students. How do we convince parents, especially when it comes to the girls, to invest in their girls and allow them to push their education? For sciences, you need to go so far. What do we need to do?
Yeah, I think that education also should be done to the general public also. So I think for me, always I have been a believer, also a strong believer that scientists have to team up with journalists like you to really educate the public. Basically, the general public gets its knowledge from the TV news, gets its knowledge from the general newspaper, not from our scientific journal. So this partnership with journalists is a critical path to educating the public as well. Yeah.
Moving now to your career and your work at ISIPE.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that a bit. Tell us, what is the core focus of ISIPE at the moment?
Yeah. So ISIPE is an international research organization founded by an iconic Kenyan whose name is Thomas Odhiambo some 40 years ago. So ISIPE basically addresses food security and health issue. We work on environmental health, human health, plant health, and animal health. But always insects as the entry point for us. So our focus are insects. Insects are pests. Insects are as also transmitters of diseases. Insects also beneficial insects like bees that provide ecosystem services and contribute to food security. So what ISIPE does for Africa is phenomenal work, providing solutions to many of the constraints in agriculture and in health across Africa.
You've just said insects provide solutions to food security.
Yes.
Let's focus on that a bit. In terms of food security, what are you doing with insects? Because we were speaking earlier about the fact that many African cultures do eat certain insects.
Yes.
Is this a serious way to deal with food insecurity? Is there a solution there?
Yeah. So good question. So food security is really a complex issue. So there is no single silver bullet to food security, addressing food security. So we have to tackle this from many angles. So food, insects as food and feed is one way of tackling that, because traditionally many cultures in Africa, across Africa, Asia, Latin America, they consume insects. They provide high quality protein source. So recently we created at ISIPE a program to basically mass rear insects for food and feed. So chicken, for example, that feed in our backyard, what do they feed? They feed on insects. They look for insects. So why not? We have the technology to mass rear these insects. So why not provide them as feed for fish, for chicken, for food for people? Generally, so it is often women and children who are sent to the forest to go and collect the insects of choice. So if we have the technology to mass rear this in substrates that are cheap, why can't we provide it so that women or farmers produce it like
as
the way
crops
as chicken? Yes, exactly, or as any other thing. Other contribution of insects to food security is like bees. About 70% of our crop globally, they need bees for pollination. So if bees have to disappear tomorrow, that our food supply would be completely diminishing as well.
There have been big concerns about this for the past few decades, especially around the fact that, we have all these insecticides, they're having huge impacts on insects, and we forget that we have ecosystems, as you have said, that really rely on insects. Where are we in the global fight, and where is Africa compared to the rest of the world?
Some of the theories that it's massive, this insecticide use, indiscriminately killing insects, including bees. The other is diseases like mites, and other diseases also of bees. So there is a serious problem in North America and Europe. But we believe that because of the gene composition of the African bees, the diversity of the genotypes of the bees that Africa has, we believe if we do it right, ISIPE holds the solution, and the rest of Africa holds a solution for the rest of the world to the bee issue.
That's remarkable. So the African bee is a strong bee.
Yes, absolutely. So there is there is a resilience. So we have recently, about a week ago, or less than a week ago, an article on National Geographic on some of the outstanding work ISIPE is doing on bees.
That's incredible. So in this field, really, we provide a solution to the world, and we're possibly ahead of the world?
We have to combine our research. What I'm pushing now is to have a cutting-edge science research in bees. The genomics, we need to sequence all the genes of the genome of all the bees that we have, the resources Africa has. We need to study a lot of their characteristics, traits, what unique traits our bees have. We need to establish a sperm bank for bees. We need also to do a sophisticated breeding system also. When we do all that, we do it right, then we are ahead of that.
We are looking to you, Segnet,
we have
to get it all done.
We have to do, but we are there. We are getting there. We will get there.
We will get there.
We'll get there. Yes.
Let me move you now out of ISIPE just for a short while to look at African governments and their focus, investment, or lack thereof on research and science research and for development purposes. What are your thoughts? Are you encouraged, or are you in despair at the position African governments take?
Yeah, I think there are changes being made. I think some governments are making significant changes. Some are not, but I think we are in the right direction. But I think why we are not seeing the changes are not happening fast enough, plenty enough to make a difference for 1 billion people. I think that's where the key is. But I think if I single out the Kenyan government, I think the Kenyan government in general is doing the right thing. So Kenya, Nairobi, for example, is now a science hub because the Kenyan government hosts a number of organizations like ISIPE. We have tax-free status. We can import cutting-edge, equipment, technology equipment, tax-free, and so on. So there are many organizations like that that are hosted here. So as a result, I think the Kenyan government is creating this research hub that is the science hub that is actually serving the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So those type of policies, they are helping also a lot, but as a number of other governments have to do similar things as well.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Let's focus now on the challenges facing the African continent, particularly from your field and your expertise. What are the 3 issues you would look at and say, whoa, Africa needs to keep an eye on these are serious threats to the continent?
I think I really have been saying, and I will say it again, that Africa really needs to treasure its people, the young people, to invest in the people. So if Africa is a continent with a young population. That young population could be a huge resource. It could be also a risk if you leave all this large number of people, young people, unemployed also. So I think investment in people is very critical also, and to value the people, to invest in education and so on, and to retain the educated people. Right. So there is a huge influx of people because the salaries are not competitive, the infrastructure is not there, the enabling environment is not there.
So there's a brain drain.
There is a brain drain, yes. Yes, you need to create that right environment. Capacity building has to go hand in hand with retention mechanism of that capacity. If we don't do that, then I think we cannot progress. So that is very, very critical. So investment in infrastructure is also critical also. The other thing I think I would really again focus is the issue of women. Women farmers, so Africa, significant number of farmers are female farmers, but they don't have access to finance, they don't have access to resources, to inputs, they don't have generally access to land. So dramatic also land policy, land ownership issues, land tenure issues, and access of these resources to women. This is critical. So I think that's what I would.
Those are the 3. I'm going to ask you in a moment about what you're most optimistic about on the African continent. But before I do that, everyone's talking about Africa rising. There's this narrative. Do you think Africa is rising?
Yes, I'm a very optimistic person. So definitely Africa is growing. However, having said that, I think we have to use our resources better. We have to train a number of people to negotiate deals also. We have a lot of resources, the mineral resources, oils and everything else. So how well are we negotiating it? Right. To get a chunk of that resource to our own people. So there are a number of things we need to do right, but I think there is a lot of progress. So I'm really optimistic,
It's good to hear the optimism, and certainly a lot of work to be done. I mentioned before in this show, African Development Bank does have a wing to advise governments. If you're looking for advice on negotiating those contracts, you can reach out to the African Development Bank. But we also have a lot of capable Africans in the continent and outside who should come back and play these roles. Let's go now to what you're optimistic about. The 3 things that make you most hopeful about Africa.
I think I'm hopeful about because there are a few things I want to mention. That I think in a number of countries, the middle class is growing. I think that is a good positive thing. In a number of also countries, there are also women in very high positions. So this is also very positive also thing. So
gender empowerment.
And I think that is
It's not affirmative action in most of these
No,
cases.
it is not. It's absolutely not. So I think Africa, I think, is open-minded on these things. So it's not. It's in many ways, if you look at it, actually, that Africa is more progressive in this.
Rwanda is a good example.
Yes, absolutely. So I think there are, you see also really empowered women and who made it, not, as you said, not affirmative action because you want a woman there. So that is, I think, very, very positive there also. There are African female leaders. I think that's positive. Even in the US, doesn't have still.
They're still waiting.
Yes, they're still waiting. Yeah? So we are, I think, ahead. Yeah. So there is a lot of democracies are also, growing also. So there are a lot of positive things. But again, as I said, that our people is 1 billion people now. Our people need changes fast, much faster than that they are. This is what is, I think. We need the changes to be fast and plenty enough to make that difference.
We're already nearly at the end of the interview, and at the end I'm going to ask you to look into the camera and give your message to all the Africans who are watching. But before we do that, there's the very serious issue of conflict in certain countries across the continent. We're seeing what's going on in South Sudan, what's going on in Central African Republic, and various other states. As an accomplished African who I believe is passionate about the continent, what do you feel when you see this?
Yeah, it is definitely heartbreaking to see that, because I think conflicts can chew your resources, can destroy a lot of things. So destruction is easy, but rebuilding takes a long time. So of course it is sad to see. However, I think that when you make people feel that, when people feel that they have nothing to lose, then this type of thing happens. So again, I think it is important to create opportunities for people, the quality of life to improve, to educate people. That is a way to really remove a lot of these conflicts, I think, and I believe that.
Who do you feel has the responsibility to almost take control of these situations, or will we see them spiral out of control like Somalia did for a good 20 years? For a bad 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Still, I think that's really a difficult question, but I think everyone has a responsibility. I wouldn't say that governments have to go and fix it. So governments are part of the people as well. So I think everyone has a responsibility. That's what I would say. I would think. But there's really, yes, we all have a role. But it's really a complex situation that I think is some of these conflicts have deep roots from the long time. I think education, discussion, dialogue, all those things, and at the end of the day, really creating opportunities for people.
At this point, really, we'd like to welcome you to just give your views to Africa. What do we need to do as African leadership and citizenry to transform, to truly transform our continent together? Please.
Okay, thank you. So I think there is no silver bullet, I think, to this, but collectively we all have a role, whether we are here within Africa, in our own soil, or Africans in the diaspora. Everyone has a role to play, to give back to society, to also basically to come together with a common vision to transform Africa. So everyone has a role to play, but also everyone has also small bits of contribution would go a long way. I think if we can put all our heads together or our resources together, if we ourselves have confidence in our own banks, in our own system, in our own countries, and do the investment here instead of also taking our funds elsewhere also. There are, so everyone has a role to play in Africa's development. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, congratulations.
Thank
it's been an honor
Thank
to
you
have
so
you
much. Thank you. Thank you, Jude.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Hello, I am Dr. Segenet Kalemu, the Director General of the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, ICIPE, and you are watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
What fascinating thoughts from Dr. Segenet Kelemu. We'd love to get your views on the issues as well. Let's have a look at what you have to say.
This week we asked you, what measures should be put in place in order to attain food security? Finley Samoita says, by introducing new methods of irrigating the arid and semi-arid areas which will cater for food security in Africa. Felix Mbindi says, expound on research institutions, expand the national budget on agriculture and sensitize farmers on global climate changes.
The most important thing, first of all, that Africa needs to do in order to ensure food security is to have good governance. When you have good governance, we will ensure that these cartels that hoard food products and ensure that there is no food in the market will be eliminated. And again, good governance will ensure that resources that are meant to be geared towards agriculture are exactly geared towards that. So let's have good governance and we shall have food security.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
Thank you for your views. Keep them coming in. Time now for Africa's Top 10.
On Africa's Top 10 this week, we feature the top food secure countries in Africa. This is according to Global Food Security Index. Starting us off at number 10 is Angola. With a food security score of 32.3%, Angola is ranked number 87 out of 107 countries globally. At number 9 is Nigeria, with a food security score of 33.1% and is ranked 85th globally. Senegal comes in at number 8 with a food security score of 34.9% and a global ranking of 81. Slotted in at number 7 is Kenya, with a food security score of 36.6% and is ranked at position 79 globally. Coming in at number 6 is Cameroon. It is ranked at number 78 globally with a food security score of 37.4%. At number 5 is Uganda with a food security score of 38.8% and is ranked globally at number 77. Côte d'Ivoire is positioned at number 4 with a global ranking of 75 and a food security score of 40.4%. Taking the number 3 spot is Ghana with a food security score of 45.3%. It is ranked at position 69 globally. South Africa comes in at number 2 with a food security score of 60.6% and is ranked 44th globally. And at number 1 this week is Botswana with a food security score of 62.5% and a global ranking of 40. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
We've already come to the end of the show and we close with a West African proverb originating from Nigeria. And it goes, fine words do not produce food. Straightforward and simple. The question is, are we talking too much? Are we doing enough? We need to ask ourselves all those questions. It's been an absolute pleasure. Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.